Hi, my name is Marilena and I will be presenting my assessment kit. So here we have a two-layered container which contains assessment kits on both layers. So here in the first layer you will find a table of contents which separates the assessments according to what they have and where. So we have the top section and then the bottom section along with additional items on the bottom section. So our first assessment here is anomia. It's just anomia. Here are the instructions for anomia. You're going to need 5 familiar objects. So here we have a hairbrush. We have, in this little pouch, we have a wristwatch, a button, and in here we also have a rubber band. We also have a pencil. Then you're also going to need 5 pictures of familiar people. So here you have Marilyn Monroe, you have Elvis Presley, you have Queen Elizabeth, you have Albert Einstein, and you have Beyonce. This is assessment number 2, which is allohagnosia. In this assessment kit, you will find the instructions as well. For this assessment, you will need a piece of cloth, a metal washer, a piece of rubber or like a rubber band. You can also use a TheraBand, cotton, and a piece of wood. For the next and third assessment, it's amorphagnosis. Here are the instructions for this assessment. You're going to need 5 different forms. So here's a ball, a styrofoam star, you have your styrofoam triangle, and then you have a rectangular piece of wood, and then you have a square block, like a square wood block. Next, you have assessment number 4, which is color anomia. Here are your instructions. Okay. And for this assessment, you're going to need 6 flashcards: green, purple, orange, yellow, pink, and white. Then you have assessments 5 and 6. So these are put together because they require a lot of the same materials. So these assessments, the 5th one is stereognosis and the 6th one is astereognosis. So here are the instructions for stereognosis. And here are the instructions for astereognosis. For these assessments, you would need to occlude your client's vision. There is an eye occluder, but that is included in the additional items because it is used for multiple assessments. So here you would just need 5 objects for astereognosis. So you would use a paper clip, a key, a coin, a pencil, and a screw. And for stereognosis, you need 6 objects. So this is the 6th object could be the cotton ball. Again, they're kept together just because they require so many of the same materials. Next, you have your 7th assessment, which would be visual agnosia or just agnosia. Here are the instructions for it. And in this assessment, you have glasses, you have a pencil, you have a coin, you have a button, and you have a key. Next, you have color anomia, or I'm sorry, color agnosia. This is the 8th assessment. Here are the instructions for it. And then you have pictures of fruit. You have 6 photos, 2 of which are the wrong color. So here's a red banana, a red apple, a strawberry, a blue cherry, a carrot, and an orange. This is the 9th assessment, so it's constructional paraxis / apraxia / dyspraxia. Here are the instructions for it. Okay, and this comes with 3 different procedures that the therapist could approach. So here is the little baggie with the first procedure. This is the image that they're supposed to copy with 3-dimensional blocks. This is the second one where they're supposed to create the same model as the therapist using the same materials provided. And then this is the third procedure where they would create a 3D model of what the therapist provides with Legos that the therapist also provides. So now this is the 10th assessment. This is form constancy. Here are the instructions. So here you have the shapes that vary sizes. This is a circle, a triangle that varies sizes as well, and finally you have a square, again varying shapes, sizes. You have a pair of scissors, you have a doorknob, you have a plate, and then you have a fork. The 11th, which is prosopagnosia. Again, here you have the instructions right there. And then you have pictures of 5 familiar people. So again, you have Elvis, you have Queen Elizabeth, you have Beyonce, you have Albert Einstein, and you have Marilyn Monroe. And then you also have a little mirror that the client could use. Okay. Next up, we have the 12th assessment, which is visual acuity mirror. Here are the instructions. And you just use the near acuity chart, which is this one, for this assessment. Next, you have visual acuity again. This is the 13th assessment, but it's the for far visual acuity. Here are the instructions. You would use your Snellen chart right here. Like this. And then you would also use an eye occluder to cover one eye at a time. Next, you have the 14th assessment, which is simultagnosia. Here are the instructions. So here you provide the client with images of like busy scenery. So here I have like a picture of New York with a lot going on. And then I have a picture of London. Next, we have pupillary size, which is the 15th assessment and the last assessment on the top part of this 2-tier container. Here are the instructions. Okay. And then here you have a pen light to test pupillary size. Okay. Pretty self-explanatory. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the second tier, the bottom tier. So here we have the 16th assessment, which is range of motion. Here are the instructions. Here are the goniometers that you would use, varying sizes and uses for them. And here is the range of motion chart in degrees, which lets you know what is the normal range for the client and if they are within the normal range. Okay, next we have the 17th assessment, which would be saccades. You have the instructions, okay? And then all you need for this assessment are 2 differently colored popsicle sticks. So mine are red and blue. Next you have 18th assessment, which is gustation. Here are the instructions for gustation. Okay, and then you have here you have different solutions. So you have bitter, this is cocoa powder, this is pepper, this is salt. You would use Q-tip applicators or just regular cotton swabs to apply that. And then this is the sour one. This one just, the Q-tip is already coated with like a lemony substance. So you don't need like an individual applicator for that one like you do for the others. Next we have number 19, which is olfaction. These are the instructions for olfaction. Okay, So in these two baggies, I doused some of the Q-tips with vanilla. They're in a bag so that they don't contaminate these, which are doused in peppermint essential oil. And then here you have cinnamon, it's covered, and you also have coffee grounds. For this one, you would need to occlude your client's vision, just so that they can't see which is which. And again, there is an eye occluder, but it is in another bag because it shares, multiple assessments share it. For the 20th and 21st assessment, they're put in the same bag because they require the same materials. So for the 25th assessment, it's audition. So here are the instructions for audition. Okay. And the 21st is vibration. Here are the instructions for vibration. And what you would need here is a tuning fork. Also important to mention that for vibration, you would use the eye occluder. Again, it's in a separate bag. So next you have sharp and dull discrimination. This is the 22nd assessment. Here are the instructions. For this, you would need to occlude your client's vision again with the eye occluder. Here's a safety pin that you would use to create the sharp or dull sensation. And you would also use a dermatome chart. Again, the dermatome chart is in the same baggie as the eye occluder because it is shared with multiple assessments. Okay, so next we have temperature, hot and cold discrimination. Here are the instructions. Okay, and you would use a test tube and a dermatome chart. The test tubes you would fill up with either hot and cold water, and you would apply those to the client's skin. And again, the dermatome chart is in the assessment kit, but in its own baggie because it's shared with other assessments. Also, you would occlude the client's vision when you do that one. So next we have assessments 24 and 25, which is the 2-point discriminator and tactile localization. Here are the instructions for 2-point discrimination. And these are the instructions for the tactile localization. These are together because they share the same material. So here you have your estheometers right here that you would use. You would occlude your client's vision using the eye occluder, which is in another baggie, and the dermatome chart, which is in the same baggie. Next, you have the 26th assessment, which is the light touch registration / discrimination. You would, here are the instructions. You would occlude your client's vision, and you would use a dermatome chart, which are in the same baggie. And here's the cotton ball that you would use for this assessment. Next, we have the 27th assessment, which is the brushing protocol and sensory simulation. Here are the instructions. And here is the nice little circle trickle brush that you would use. Next, you have the oral tactile simulation. For this, you just need to read these first. Okay, and then you would just need an oral nook brush. These next two assessments, 29 and 30, are the assessments that I chose to do, my additional assessments. So the 29th is actually graphesthesia. You don't need any materials for it. Here are the instructions. It is in a baggie though, just because I didn't want it to get lost with the other assessments. Here you would have the last and final assessment, which would be the Wong-Baker Faces Pain Scale. These are the instructions for it. And here is the Wong-Baker scale that you would use. And then finally, we have the last little baggie, which includes the additional items. So it has the dermatome chart and the eye occluder that you would just use for those sensory assessments. And this is the dermatome chart.